we're trying to find receivers right now. You could tell like this is an overlying theme of like, bro, receivers are kind of going down right now. We've seen like big names go down, start the season. Cooper Kupp went down, Rashee Rice went down, AJ Brown has missed time. Like a lot of receivers have gone down. And I mean, even like lesser production from elite talent we drafted, like Olave hasn't produced as expected. CeeDee Lamb has even been somewhat of a disappointment for those who drafted him.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson was up until like last week. We were calling Garrett Wilson a disappointment. But it's also a good time to find like emerging players and maybe emerging situations. KC on Monday night played a football game, and we saw JuJu Smith-Schuster look like the old player we saw in Pittsburgh, man. I was like, who is this guy performing? And listen, I mean, there has to be a path here to wide receiver 3 value rest of the way with no Rashee Rice, right? Like, it's not going to be Worthy because Worthy's too inconsistent. There's no other receiver on this team. Am I crazy to say JuJu is a wide receiver 3 at least the rest of the season?
I don't know if I would go that. I will say I see the upside for sure. And the reason why I see the upside is because I want to say Patrick Mahomes, like even said that he trusts JuJu. And like when you just have the trust of a quarterback, and the other thing too, like that's really important. But the other thing too that I was looking at is like JuJu, it kind of like took over the Rashee Rice role where he had a very low A dot, and I want to say 80, he had over 80 yards after the catch. So it's kind of like this guy, like in terms of Rashee Rice, that he's just catching these shorter passes and kind of run after the catch. There was a couple that were like down the field, but and one other thing too is like Travis Kelce, he had a good game, but like we already saw it with Rashee Rice, like Travis Kelce kind of took the back seat because Travis Kelce's getting up there in age, man. Like it is what it is. And he could, obviously it looks like he's kind of declining at the moment. JuJu has been like dealing with knee injuries. I won't even say when he was there last, he was dealing with a knee injury. So if he can stay healthy, I do think that there's a lot of upside because Xavier Worthy kind of looks like one trick pony type of guy, go deep, or it's like a end around or something like that. He's not really a guy who's kind of like working all areas of the field. Yeah. But yeah, I think that JuJu, this team obviously trusts him. He's been with this team before. You even heard it out of Patrick Mahomes' mouth that he trusts him. When you have the trust of a quarterback, especially the best quarterback in the NFL, I think that's very, you could become very fantasy relevant for sure.
I say this a lot, like even for dynasty players too. A lot of people like draft dynasty players where situation matters so much. Sometimes situation, especially when you're dealing with a talented individual, it matters because you go to a New England team that down on the luck quarterback wise, you got Mac Jones, and then he obviously isn't performing at the level. You get Bailey Zappi in there, and then he's dealing with injury. It's like you get a healthy, motivated JuJu Smith who's familiar with the team, playing with the best quarterback in the league. The signs were there early to me. I'm not going to lie. It was one of the people like in Dynasty, somebody had cut him in our league, and I picked him up for this reason. Early in the year, he was getting red zone looks, and you don't get red zone looks in a Kansas City offense unless you've earned those looks in practice, unless you've earned the trust. And it was multiple looks. He had a bad drop. I want to say it was either the very first game against Baltimore or maybe it was in week 2. But he had a bad drop in the end zone. A lot of people, JuJu sucks. Haha, he's cooked. And it's like, you know what? Sometimes players, when they get that opportunity, they shine with it. And it's not like he's not talented. We know JuJu's talented. He commanded a $30 million deal. Last time he got a contract, it was with the Patriots, $30 million deal over 3 seasons. So we know he's valued in the NFL circles. And to see it, Tyler, I was like, you know what? Why wouldn't he be a wide receiver 3? Maybe he's a little inconsistent. That's fine. But that's probably one of that'll be like an average to above average game for him. And that's the first one that we saw like that. I could see him on 5, 6, 7 catches on a weekly basis. And maybe he's not Rashee Rice, but like, dog, I think wide receiver 3, if I was in a league right now and I could get JuJu off of waivers, I'm probably spending a big amount to get JuJu as like a wide receiver if I need one, like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. And I don't think I'd feel bad about it knowing that Rashee Rice is out for the year.
So is he your top ad?
He would be my top ad this week.
Over say like Tank.
I think Tank Bigsby, Tyrone Tracy, you got to deal with the backs ahead of them, right? You got to know that like Travis Etienne's still going to be involved for Bigsby. You got to know that Devin Singletary is going to come back. And even even when you start to think of like some of the other lesser receivers, like Jalen Tolbert, we know CD's the guy there. JuJu could he could legit be the guy for this KC offense that is trying to move off of Travis Kelce. I don't think that Travis Kelce is moved off of in the same manner it would have happened, but they have to have those two complementary pieces in order for this offense to go. It looks like it was built like that, and I think it was on display on Monday night.
I agree. For me, if you really need wide receiver help, I would still prefer Tank and probably Tyrone Tracy, just because I like running backs more. I like to stash them. But if I am hurt on running or wide receiver, you could have had like Nico Collins, you could have had Tyreek Hill, like you could have had Rashee Rice. Like you could be down bad and you kind of need some wide receiver. Absolutely. I think that Juju has a lot of value going forward because he could be the guy.
Honestly, like people were willing to spend on like Isaiah Likely at the start of the season. People spent really big dollars on like J.K. Dobbins. To me, this is because you talked about it, how easy it is to find running backs throughout the year. Like we could find the next backup running back. A Cam Akers is useful on a certain week, or Bigsby's good on certain weeks. It is very hard to find consistent, productive wide receivers. And so when I think of Juju, I'm like, the name value's got a little stench on it. Obviously, he's hurt us in the past. We've drafted him early, and it hasn't always panned out. But this situation is ideal. And when you have a fab budget of like $100, not spending 40 to 50% of that budget to get a player that probably is a starter in your lineup for the rest of the season. The rest of the season, that to me, like you've got your number one waiver priority, spend it on him, man.
No, that's a good point. I agree. Wide receivers are tough to find, so that is a good point.